let us see his personal history or personal background. Why he concentrated more on unconditional positive regard or respect and love from parents and society and others. Also self-regard, self-love, self-respect. And he focused more on this. Not only that, aiming good and realizing full potential is the goal of one's life. That is what he says in the essence. For this, his childhood dictated him to move towards in the direction of developing this theory and also as well as the therapy. He was the fourth child in the family, and his elder brothers used to bully him. Because there is no respect for him in the family, that perception was developed in him. Secondly, his mother is a conditional mother, meaning that only conditional love she used to extend on fulfilling certain tasks or expectations of mother. That also made him feel that or perceive that he had no regard at home. And he extended this concept of not having proper or unconditional love, respect, praise, recognition from family members leads one to fail in his life or not able to achieve desired or targeted or ideal tasks or goals or aims one develops. This is basic background, because once you know this background, you can easily write the person-centric theory if you get in the examination. Once another next one is after completion of courses in psychology, he thought of doing scientific farming, agriculture farming, and he gave it up, and then thought of, because it is a religious family, Orthodox religious family, he thought of becoming a priest or a minister. That also he gave up after joining a job in a guidance center. Subsequently, he moved to counseling centers and did experimental studies on the clients in the clinic. It is clinical case studies. They use approach or method of study, research is clinical case studies. You have to remember this point. And also, he adopted the Q-sort method. I will discuss later regarding analyzing the qualitative as well as quantitative perceptions. Related to perceptions, he made a study, because this is a perception that makes the self. So he adopted Q-sort method. Two methods he adopted. One is clinical study method and Q-sort for the study research. Famous books he wrote are on becoming a person. This is the book frequently quoted, because those who do the person-centric therapies, they really love this book, because he says how becoming a person, a client, he calls a patient as a client. He won't agree with the word that labeling a diseased person as a patient. He says that we should call him a client because of his humanitarian approach and the positive approach. Here in this book, he writes how to understand from the therapist angle, how to understand a patient, as a client. And then what are the methods we have to adopt to enable him to become a person again with the congruence. What is congruence? We'll discuss. Then at the end, he wrote a book, A Way of Being, that is a humanistic perspective. That is also a very famous book. And he was nominated for Nobel Prize. He tried to solve the conflict with love and humanitarian considerations. He went into the countries like South Africa and Ireland, Northern Ireland, where religious conflicts are there. In South Africa, racial conflicts are there. He tried his best and made a lot of impact. And for that, he was nominated for the Nobel Prize at the end of his life. He lived nearly for 85 years. And he contributed this humanistic therapy to the psychology. Also, personality development is personality theory based on self theory. This is the brief introduction about Paul Willis. And he is focusing more on individual. He says that individual is the basic unit to study psychology, not groups. And his approach is humanistic approach. He brought in the humanism into the psychology. This humanistic approach is called third wave in psychology. First and second, that is psychoanalysis of Freud, and next is behavioral and cognitive approaches. Now, humanism is considered to be the third wave, and they are against the behavioralism and psychoanalysis. So it is the experience and the self that determines your behavior rather than rewards and punishment or conflicts. Even though he is against psychoanalysis, but there was influence of Freud on him. There was influence of Adler on him. Adler is neo-Freudian. We will discuss that shortly, how he influenced him. And then he is also not using the word abnormal behavior. Is against using word and analysis based on the abnormal behavior. Then humanistic tendency, what is that humanism that influenced him and subsequently brought in aspects into the psychology as a theory as well as a therapy. So can anybody tell what is humanism? Once you know this, you can easily understand entire theory. Can anybody? We frequently use humanism. If we are all, please.
Human is a person who can understand himself and more respected self.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, humanism. Good, sir. Thank you for your answers. Here, humanism is very optimistic about human nature. When you write this answer to any question in this, you have to remember this point. One is optimistic view perception of the human nature. Human being is rational. He is not irrational. He is rational. Human being is innately good. He is not bad. Just like Rousseau. Rousseau says that human being is good. Similarly, here also innately good. They know, they are consciously understand and take decisions. They have free will to decide among different options what is good for him. This is second consideration. Third assumption regarding the human nature is everybody enjoys freedom. They love free will to decide and determine, not only determine or take decisions, but also control others or control oneself or regulate oneself. That will is there in oneself. This is another assumption. Next assumption is people are responsible for their acts. Whatever they do, whatever decision they take, they openly tell that I am responsible for this, either success or failure. Then comes the important point, human beings by birth have innate tendency to realize oneself, to bring out the best from them and realize their potentials. For that, they are ready to change for the growth. This is another assumption. So here, humanistic assumptions about the human nature are optimistic. Any person who deviates from this will have the problems, the consequences, social problems or mental problems. This is basic assumptions. And main focus of Carl Rogers is how to make this human being fully functioning person or self-actualization, realized person. Abraham Lincoln used self-actualized person. Here he is fully functioning person. When we discuss, we can see some differences and similarities. And for that, the main focus is on fully functioning person and self-actualization tendencies. Tendencies means we're ready to act. You have tendency to act. What purpose? To realize your potentials. What is that is called as self-actualization. So he says that for this self-actualization, it won't happen automatically. Abraham Maslow says that human self, one's self will be acting in hierarchical manner, one need after, based on the needs. This was accepted by Rogers, but he added new concepts like self and need for the environment. He says that a favorable environment should be there for everyone to realize their potentials, to lead good life, to lead happy life. This is what he says. Rogers' addition is need for good environment, which encourages him, which gives respect to him, which gives unconditional regard to him. This is what he says. Another one is Maslow studied mostly about already self-esteemed persons who are having high regards, high self-esteem, and they achieved a lot in their career and in their society. They got good recognition. But Rogers did a case studies on the clients in the clinic. Maslow did not concentrate on the diseased persons or the patients. He concentrated more on the successful persons. These are major deviations. And coming back, having told that there are certain factors to be satisfied for one to become good or better or achieve his full potential. What are those factors? We will see now. One after another, we will see now. And let us see now the humanistic orientation or humanistic approach. We have studied optimistic view about human nature. We have studied to realize fully potential. There are certain conditions to be fulfilled by society or oneself. This is what the essence is. Now he is concentrating more on individual self, individual ideal, and targets and goals. But another person concentrated on individuality or individual and developed this theory called as individual theory of psychology. Can anybody tell? We already covered that. Can anybody tell that who gave that theory? They have more similarities between these two. Can anybody tell? Individual theory of personality. We already covered in unit number, I think, unit number 12. Yes, unit number 12. It is Adler. Adler is Freud's student, and he deviated and became a neo-Freudian. Instead of conflicts in the unconscious, conscious mind and childhood fixations, he came out and said that this is social. Environment plays important role. There are environmental determinants or social determinants for oneself to progress. This is one point. And he also concentrated that individually is not narrow having narrow scope, but it is a whole and unique personality there for individual. Same thing is told by Rogers also. But another thing Adler told is why I'm linking Adler to the Rogers and Abraham Maslow to the Rogers is this Rogers has combined, yes, many elements common to self theory and to the Adler's individual theory and Abraham's need-based theory. So here Adler says that there is a creative self in everyone, and for that, from creative self, there is a drive for striving for superiority. For that, here he says that fully functioning person or actualization, self-actualization. Here he says striving for superiority. What purpose? There will be ideal self, that is self-ideal or fictional finalism. That is what there are goals, ultimate goals. That is what we achieve. Hindrances, how to overcome them, that we told. But while telling this, he says that when individual interest is combined with the social interest, social welfare, individual welfare, then there will be optimum satisfaction and full function. This is what Adler says. Similar fashion, Paul Rogers also wrote. Okay, we discussed about humanistic approach, also compared Adler's approach with the Rogers approach, so that we can easily understand this theory. Now we will discuss about basic personality, theory of personality. Three parts we will divide. One is structure of personality. Second one is dynamics of personality. Third one is development of personality. When most of the theories cover all these points. And finally, evaluation. How far he contributed, what are the criticism, what is the criticism or deficiencies in this theory, we will discuss. So all theories are having same pattern. Most of the whether it is Freud or Jung or Adler, they're all having structure of personality also, dynamics of personality. But dynamics of personality is nothing but the processes and functions one undertakes in this behavior. This is about the dynamics that we will discuss. Regarding the structure of personality, you can write it down. We will discuss 4 elements in this. One is organism. Organism, briefly telling, instead of calling individual, he calls organism. And organism is the place where we will have all types of experiences within and without. Just brief introduction I am giving. Then phenomenal field is nothing but all your experiences with the society and within you, with others, objects, your thoughts, images, feelings, emotions, your motivations, all these put together, and your learning, all these put together, you will be having experiences, different experiences. That experience, those experiences are called as phenomenal approach means experience-based study are called phenomenal studies. Here is studying the experiences of the individual. Then we study in the phenomenal field, we study about unconditional positive regard. Please write it down. And self-worth. If worth is low, what happens? If worth is high, what happens? At what age self-worth is into the person? That also we discuss. Third one is we will discuss about the self. How self is formed. How the self is formed, the phenomenal field. There will be evaluative function in the organism. That evaluative function creates the self. The self is again divided into 3 parts. One is self-worth. Second one is real self. Third one is ideal self. What are the relation between these 3? We will discuss. Then we will discuss a part of it is organism and self. What is the congruency what is incongruency. If congruency is there, what happens? Incongruency is there, what happens? If incongruency is there, how to overcome? That also we discuss. Then comes the dynamics of personality. What are different self-achievement, whatever is there. For that, there will be certain tendencies or activities. There are 19 elements of that we will discuss. The process is part individual does to realize oneself and his potential or self-actualization process. Then development of personality, we will see what who is fully fun. There are no stages. Please remember, don't write it. If you get any question in the examination, don't write stages of personality development regarding the Carl Rogers scale. You will get no marks. So here we will discuss about childhood, how the self-worth comes, and then congruency, incongruency develops. Then as one grows, self is a fluid, how self, ideal self, real self, what are the differences? Then if they are congruent and you will be achieving, if you are achieving, you will become a person. The fully functioning person have certain characteristics that also we will discuss. Then fully functioning person and the self also we discuss. What is good life also we'll discuss if time permits. Then evaluation. Okay, now humanistic approach. What are the key elements and assumptions of it we have discussed. Now we will see organism. Okay. So organism is nothing but an individual or a person, wherein he says, instead of using the word, these two words, he uses the word organism, which is full of experiences. All are subjective experiences. Your experience, your understanding, your meaning, your value to particular person or event, I don't know, you don't. Only the person who is experiencing them will know it. That we have to remember. Where these experiences are within that particular person or individual. That is called as organism. So Carl Rogers defines an individual as organism who is sum of all subjective perceptions, beliefs, values that organism experiences or an individual experiences. Where is the locus, where is the place one experiences is human body. That he calls it as organism. But what about all the experiences accumulated into the person, that all those points put together, he names as phenomenal field. Phenomenal field. PHENOMENAL field. Phenomenal field. Why? From these experiences, our behavior comes out, our reaction comes out with respect to the environment. Where from this experience comes? Within and without. Environment also plays important role. But this organism by birth will be having two things. One is inherent motivational system. It includes the needs. Please remember that inherent motivational system is there, and the regulatory system is also there. Whatever is experience is coming, that experience is valued by the system, by organism. That concept of evaluation is called organismic valuing process. Please remember this word, organismic valuing process. This is this organic valuing process that filters our experiences, segregates our experiences, and organizes our experiences, and gives us who am I, what is my worth. This concept gets developed for every individual. This is nothing but development of the self, concept of the self, or that we discussed earlier. There are three elements, that is self-worth, ideal self, and real self, that we will discuss later. Here, this evaluation system is nothing but the feedback to one's organism, so that this organism will be making this self. Self is ever changing. Please remember, self is not constant. It is a process. It will be changing. So required changes for fulfillment or to become fully functional person or realize your potentialities or actualize a person, this organism helps us. But this innate drive is nothing but organism's basic tendency that strives hard to actualize or realize, maintain, or enhance one's actualization or experiences or experiencing organism. This is the definition given by Rogers regarding the actualization tendency. These are nothing but basic tendency or striving. You take certain actions to realize your best, to get the best, to achieve the best. For actualization is nothing but what you actualize there, your physiological and psychological needs. Please remember this is nothing but actualization. This is higher level. Once you go, that is more fully functioning person. Next, if this tendency to actualize yourself or self-actualize depends on what? In environment. So there are certain factors required in the environment for one to progress or grow. What are they? Briefly, they are nothing but unconditional positivity, God, then empathy, like that we will discuss. So these factors, facilitators in the environment should be there. So next one is if unfavorable environment is there, whatever your attempts, striving attempts, drives are there, they will be hampered or thwarted by the unfavorable environment. Where somebody curses, suppose a child is always abused by father, saying that you are unfit, you always fail, you can't make anything, you are useless fellow. Once this type of unfavorable environment is there in the family, that leads to the inferiority complex or a concept that I have no self-respect, self-esteem, I have no capacity to fulfill my ideas or ideals or my goals. This type of negative behavior or negative thought process will come. That he says that he cannot actively and positively contribute to oneself and to the family and others. This is called as incongruency. 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 If this incongruency is there, that leads to psychopathology. That is it. Please remember, whenever you write a theory on personality development, you have to invariably write what is personality development. If personality development is not proper, what it leads to, what type of psychopathology it leads to, that we have to discuss in all theories. Please remember the point. So incongruency there is coming that there will be self-defense mechanisms come out. Who told self-defense mechanism first time? It is Freud. He used to practice psychoanalysis in the beginning of his career. So that influence is also there on him. Not only Maslow and Adler, but also Freud influenced. So these defense mechanisms using frequently have negative aspects. This organistic experience, failure, repetitive failures, or feeling of unworthiness, or lack of self-esteem leads to psychopathy. So one has to remember that there will not be always synchrony. Synchronous development will not be there. Self-actualization and self-actualization drives, there will be always a type of competition. Self-actualization demands self-actualization tendency or activities. There will be gap or conflicts. man or woman will try to overcome them. So here, one point organism related to organism is experiences and perceptions are centered to understand one's personality in Carl Roger's theory. Please remember. So what is now we have studied about organism, we will study about the phenomenal field, means what are his experiences? He is having different experiences. We told that experiences come within and without. Without means environment. What is that? This environment, individual is experiencing. He is experiencing motivation to achieve his desired goals. And environment, he is learning from others, how others are respecting him, or how, what others are thinking about him, how they are evaluating him, how are they prizing him, are they giving reward, recognition, regard. He thinks about that. In phenomena field, there will be a functional relation between we are thinking about the experiences. In the experience, what are they? There are certain we experience our relationship with the other people, our thoughts, our images, our behavior, others' behavior, external object, external people. They all make some functional relationship with an individual, that is I or me. I and me are always there in the mind of an organism, and that is interacting with these the components that are there within oneself and in the environment. People means different people, family, friends, neighbors, religious people, caste people, all the cultural people, all these different people. So here, individual main contribution regarding the experience is motivation. The main element that one get influence from environment is learning. Our socialization, role fixation, jobs, and everything is decided by the environment, apart from our individual efforts. So that learning process and the motivation process links the functional relationship between I and me with the phenomenal field agents. So once that experience comes into you, that you will react to the changes in this environment field that gives the behavior. Why we get the behavior? We get the behavior because our reaction to the changes with the other people, other objects, others' behavior, one's behavior, one's thoughts and images, ideas, emotions, that causes our reaction and the behavior. Here, and once this relationship is being established, it leads to one to value these experiences. Experiences creates perception. These perceptions, one assigns certain value or meaning. Please sequence this. Please remember this phenomenon. Our experiences with others and self are there, which creates inner perceptions. We evaluate them, that is, value them. This evaluating process is organismic valuing process, and we assign meaning to that. And that creates the self. Please remember, what creates the self? This phenomenal field creates the self, or formation of self will be there. But one more component here is in the early childhood, there are certain needs, basic needs for every individual. There are basic two needs will be there. One is self-actualization, second one is positive regard. In the childhood, main focus is on positive regard. That is, child wants to receive acceptance, respect, and affection from the others. This is called, this should be unconditional. Even I fail in the examination, father should respect, parents should respect me. This is what unconditional, and not on the conditions. Because one committed a fraud or one committed an evil deed, you cannot throw him out of your ambit of the love and affection. This is unconditional positive regard. Why he brought in this from his childhood experience, where his mother used to demand that the mother used to demand, you do some task, I will give you love. You do task, I will give you food. This type of conditional love mother used to give. That's why it influenced a lot in him. And then he incorporated that in his thing. So in this phenomenal field, in the childhood, out of two basic needs, Thomas gave need theory. Here, he also accepted it, but Abraham gave this many needs. Out of this, he concentrated basically on the self-actualization and the positive regard. These are innate. Please remember, these are innate. So here, what is a phenomenal field we discuss with respect to the childhood? What childhood discusses, child demands? Inherently, what is the demand is nothing but positive regard, unconditional positive regard. If parents are giving that, child will develop congruence in him, confidence in him, what I feel that I am worthy person. This is what here again coming back to the Freud. Freud also told that childhood experiences determined your personality. Here he not completely accepting, but partially is accepting and brought in the what self-esteem given by Maslow. He also gave it as a regard, but it is unconditional positive regard. That is what demanded by the child. If parents are not giving this, he feels by comparing with the others and fulfillment of his needs, he feels that I am worthy person. A confidence is embedded into the child. So he will become active, he will become, it paves the way for self-actualization in the later stages. If child experiences low self-worth because of unconditional self-regard, then it leads to discrepancy in actualization or self-actualization. Here, the childhood, what happens is, child try to evaluate it. We do it also. Everybody does his experiences evaluation. That evaluation process is called as organismic evaluation process. This process in the childhood evaluates with respect to their regard or respect or love, recognition, prize are given by the parents. But in the later stages, we value these with respect to your targets or your self-ideal, which fixes what you want to be. With respect to that, it tries to compare, evaluate, and say whether it is good or bad. Good or bad criteria comes here. With respect to what? Your self-actualization target. Or is the social recognition or social activities are in tune with my self-actualization or not? All these experiences he tried to segregate and modify self. This is nothing but a feedback system in order to modify what I want to be, what I am, and what I want to be. That we will discuss in the self later. So for the early environment purpose, please remember that in the early environment, major need is self-regard or positive regard, unconditional positive regard. But later both will be there in every person. The evaluation process continues, and the later period, the evaluation process is not only with respect to the self-regard, but also with respect to the self-actualization, realization of potential, whether they are obstructing or facilitating. Depending on that, we will decide these experiences and yourself and others, other objects or events, desirable, undesirable, and assign a positive value or negative value to it. So all desirables will provide you, facilitate you in the self-actualization. So please remember that this is the organismic valuing process, is the governing process throughout our lifespan. So here, positive, with respect to self-regard, what is the positive respect of the positive regard is giving? Positive regard by others, they tell that they are, hello? They tell that they are valuing, they are respecting you and treat you with affection, care and love. This leads to self-worth. So I am capable person of doing self-esteem is a belief about your worthiness or the capabilities to perform the tasks required. So the high self-worth means it gives a confidence and positive feeling in the child, and he faces the challenges, he gets the confidence, that's why and accept the failures. If failures are there, he will accept them and open with the people. This is a major point, open with the people. Can anybody tell when a patient comes to the clinic or a client comes to the clinic, he won't be opening up. What is the therapy you initially adopt? Whatever maybe, it is behavioral therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy or gestalt therapy, there are different things. The client is not getting open up. He refuses to talk. What therapy you give? It is person-centric therapy of Carl Rogers. What are the key elements we discuss? So here is, please remember this point at the end, we will discuss that. Here, major focus is on understanding one's perceived reality. Please remember, the perceived reality may not be actual reality. It is only perception. Please remember this Carl Rogers phenomenon field. Right? Must try to place themselves as much as possible. What is happening here is that becomes an internal framework for that client. Once a client comes, what we do, we try to understand his internal framework. Earlier we discussed a person is not opening up because he is not having what? Why he is not opening up? Because he is not having positive regard from others and or to the self. Self-regard is also not there, then he may not be opening up. There we try to give him regard, unconditional, which is the first condition during the rapport building or during the counseling process. That is a threadbare. It goes on entire process of giving respect to that person in respect of his status and value. So here, how to understand a person's internal framework of his experience, which are subjective. I don't know, others don't know. Only he experiences with regard to the people, persons, family, wife, child, office, his failure, his tasks, his goals. So he needs some counseling. That is his internal frame that made him psychopath, made him diseased or psychopathology developed. So what is that element during the counseling process we adopt to convince this person to look in and open up? What is that? Can anybody tell? What is that you put your feet in the shoes of others? That is called as during the counseling process. You put your feet in the shoes of the client or the patient. That is called as?
Empathy.
Excellent. Appreciate you. This is the empathy that makes you feel. Otherwise, you are going into that person. He feels that he is the person who understood me. There are different techniques to express empathy. That is counseling part. Time permits will see. Okay, please remember this. Unconditional regard you have to give in the counseling, and empathetical approach you have to adopt during the counseling process. These two leads other person to get the confidence, to get the affection, or get the feeling that he is the person with whom I can talk. Not only talk here in the clinical room, or also going out, he slowly start opening up. This is what Carl Rogers said. So theoretical part, how the theory of person-centric therapy is developed that I'm linking to the concepts or theory part. So what we discussed here is organism we discussed. In that organism experiences makes the phenomenal field. In the phenomenal field, in the early environment, how child gets the confidence and worth of doing things and confidence in progress or change and achieve the goals. Now, one writer here, please remember, according to Rogers, says that experience is the highest authority. Please remember, this is very, very important. That's why he focuses on the experiences. Experiences are subjective. They are not objective or real. We cannot test them properly. This is the problem with this theory. In the criticism, we can write that subjective component, objective component. So, in the phenomenal field, now self-regard we discuss. Now in this phenomenal field, due to this evaluation of your experiences with the people, concept, theories, values, so objects, making you evaluate, organismic evaluation. Evaluation with respect what? Your achievables. I put the phrase the word achievables or targets or ideal self. Later we will replace that with ideal. So once this filtering happens or segregation happens and organization takes place, that organization is self also develops. So this is about the phenomenal field. Here, two things, the behavior comes from that and self also comes from that. Self-formation also comes from that. So there is experiences, how we in psychology, in the research methodology, how we do, what is the approach we do in the research methodology. It is qualitative approach. Please go home and read the qualitative research methods. Okay. So next one is certain facts are also will be there. Where facts comes here? Internal experiences are qualitative. Where facts come here in this personality developmental theory of the Carl Rogers. Where from facts come? Can anybody tell? Facts come from measurable achievements, also from the environment, from other people. So he studied both qualitative and quantitative aspects of the self. What are they? They're learning from the environment, motivation from the within, motivation process from the within. The organism has through two processes, motivational process and second one is evaluation process, organismic evaluating process that I discussed. So here is what is the method he used is Viva question or UGC net. Generally we get this. Many questions or 2-3 questions will be there. In every question paper, every examination, there will be no examination without touching Carl Rogers and Freud. These two we have to read thoroughly before any competitive examinations. So here he used is Q-sort factor analysis method. Q-sort method, just I will tell. We will ask the participants to evaluate a scale we will give. Example 0, -5 to 0 to +5. How you evaluate the meaning of particular aspect or experience or belief or opinion or preference. For that we will give it in your life. What is the preference you give? What is from this experience? If you ask the rating, that from that a Q-sort study method. Please remember this is Q-sort method of study.
Sir, please repeat about the Q-sort.
Q-sort is a research methodology. We can find that in the factor analysis, quantitative approaches. Q-sort is nothing. It combines two things, qualitative as well as quantitative. Factor analysis entirely for quantitative and qualitative analysis, different rating scales are there. Here in Q-sort method combines both qualitative and quantitative aspect of the personality. Where from they come, I already discussed about the individual and environment, learning, motivation, these aspects. So from this phenomenal field, we develop self. Now let us see self. This is part of the structure of the personality. We discussed about organism and two processes, self-actualization, self-regard, and from that, the early environment, self-regard, parents, what is the role of parents, how he gets the confidence, and other aspects we discuss. Now, from these experiences and organismic valuing process, how self is formed, how self is organized with respect to self-action. That we will discuss. Now, this need for positive regard is conditional and unconditional. What happens? Conditional is that there will be self discrepancies. Okay, I muted him. In unconditional positive regard is there, then self-actualization will be there. So the targeted goals one tries to achieve them. If conditional positive regard is given by the parents, then there will be discrepancies and there will less confidence or maybe inferiority also will be developed. That's why, Freud, sorry, excuse me. Here, Roger says that the need for self-actualization and the positive regard always create a conflict. Freud says about the conflicts in the childhood conflict. Here also, even though he denies psychoanalysis, he brings in the conflict here. There will be always a conflict between self-actualization tendencies, activities. Here again he says that there is a need for conflict in order to progress between the self-actualization and the positive regard. So this is now we coming to the now organization is having a lot of experiences within and without, and these experiences create the perceptions, and these perceptions we assign the values with respect to our goals. Now this set of perceptions and the beliefs, we call it as the self. To form this self, there are three the factors that enable the self. One is the early childhood experiences with respect to the self-regard. And then second one is our internal world, our beliefs and values we hold for ourselves, ourself. Third one is external world, what others perceive about me. Please remember this. We have to write this regarding the self formation. The three influences in creation of the self concept are childhood parental attitude towards you. Second one is your own belief about yourself, your worth, your values, your abilities, your emotions, either positive or negative. These are also influence in formation of what you are, what you want to be. Not only what you are, you want to be. Third one is the perceptions of others about you. These three contribute to the self-concept formation. So early childhood, we already discussed about the self-regard, how it influences your self-actualization tendency within you. Now we see how self-actualization influences self-actualization. So there are two selves. One is there are two selves. One is real self and the actual self. Some cases, real self is called as self-image, and ideal self is called as ideal. Some cases, ideal self is also called as self-concept. Don't get confused. So here, I want to get, say, 80% of marks in the psychology final year examination. That is your goal. That becomes your ideal self. So what is your real self? Real self says that Baba, I am lazy fellow. I want to achieve 80%. I am lazy fellow. I don't like to study, but I want to get recognition. This and third person, the target is that another person says that I want to achieve 80%. I am very much interested. I am having a lot of interest and motivation. I will read it, and he studies, he plans, and every hour, 3 hours, every day, 2 hours or 3 hours, he studies, prepare notes or floor or diagrams he draws. So who is having congruence, who is not having congruence? There is ideal self of target, and your real self says that you can do, you can't do, you are doing, you are not doing. This says congruency or incongruence. If ideal self is in tune, your efforts are in tune with your ideal self, or your real self is in tune with the ideal self, in sync with that, and if you draw Venn diagrams, they are matching, or a Venn diagram is a lot of area coverage is there, then we call it as congruence. So the once that is there, self-actual tendency increases, and the self-record, you will get the self-record from others. Also, you will have your own record. That is called as self-record. So once for ideal self, what it demands? It demands striving, it demands ambitions. So these are meeting they are in tune with the targets, then we call it as a congruent person, congruent state. If they are not in tune, then we call it as incongruent. The person is having goal, but is not putting efforts. Emotionally think that I can't do it. That self-esteem is not there. Self-regard is not there. So there comes the problem. That is called as incongruence. So congruency, incongruency, we decide not only by comparing real self with the actual self, real self with the ideal self, but also the self-worth. The congruence always increases self-worth. If self-worth is more, you will do activities. Self-worth is self-esteem. Self-esteem is belief in your abilities. If you develop belief in your abilities, then you will try hard to achieve your goals. That is a simple meaning. So the person who is having congruency or good self-worth or self-esteem, also having an ideal self, and your real self or the self-image is acting in the mode of striving, or there is a tendency, acting tendency, then that is called as congruence. That person will develop well-adjusted personality. The person who is not having self-worth or not putting efforts in tune with the ideal self, then is called as poorly adjusted personality. Here comes one problem. Will incongruency act as a motivation? Can anybody tell? Suppose you want to achieve, you could not achieve. Will it create a motivation or not?
It will not be a motivation, sir, but at the same time, if a determined person wants to achieve it, they will certainly try to achieve it.
We are coming very closely. Initially, it is motivating factor. So, because incongruency is there, self is always changes. Humanistic theory says that myself changes and always go for growth. In that perspective, in that background, here initially, it becomes a motivation for you. Repeated failure will remove the self-worth.
But later it will be an anxious stage. It will be threat-prone.
Excellent. So this is about the self theory. So we'll just see about the ideal self and a few aspects, theoretical aspects. Now we'll see the here three components of self are self-worth, self-image, and ideal self, and how they are formed from your childhood experiences, earlier environment, your internal environment and external environment. How you others view you, how you view yourself. So from this self-concept develop, how I see myself, why others see me, what I expect from myself, what others expect from me, what is my personal self, what are my personal perceptions and motivations, and the social, the way I appear to others. These are different internal and external factors that we mention. What is self-worth is what we think about ourselves. It is developed in the early stage when by comparing with others, the way people respond to the child, this is developed. Self-esteem and confidence, we discussed. What is the self-image? Self-image from our internal and external body, internal perceptions, internal beliefs and values, goals, whatever you fix, that, and your body, whether healthy body or robust body, different from your expectations, that put together form how you see yourself is nothing but self-image. So this self-image influences your thinking process, emotional process, behavior process. All ABC, affect, behavior and cognitive process. So it also creates, I am ugly person, beautiful person, handsome person, good person, bad person. This type of, this image creates certain perceptions in you. But self-image is very good, essential for good psychological health. Self-image does not always match with the reality. It is only perception. Your real self is somewhat different. Some people, while analyzing the congruency, what is your real self? You don't know, but others should tell you. So some test should be there. Real self and your perceived self-image may be incongruent. Please remember this point also. And then while creating self-image, you view yourself as positive and others as negative. This is what there could be a problem in that. But person think that his subjective experiences are real. There comes the problem in this theory. Then ideal self, meaning who we would like to be. This is the essence of it, that in that person. There will be goals and ambitions, as we discussed earlier. It is dynamic, ideal self is changing. Here we discuss incongruency there, the match between ideal self and your real self efforts. Then your ideal self will change the goals. Instead of 80%, you may fix it as 70% or 60%, depending on your self-esteem, right? The ideal self childhood is not ideal self. Please remember, ideal self there. Child does not have the targets at the time. So the problem arises when there is incongruency. We already discussed about that one. This is basically about the three components of it. So generally a picture will be shown. There will be a mirror in front of that. A person will be standing, and what he sees in the mirror is ideal. He don't see actually the real image, but he try to compare your image with the ideal image, and looking frequently at the mirror also causes problem. So this is about the self theory of. So now growth, let us see growth. Regarding the growth, we need three factors. This is also discussed in our book. Growth, where it is. So page number 188, person and centered approach is given, person centered. Here three conditions are required for the growth for a person, not only in the terms of actualization, self-actualization. In counseling process also, you have, as a counselor, you should adopt this. That's a precondition. The Rogers says that you should have congruence. What you are, what you want to achieve, you should have already achieved in that regard, regarding the psych. That is a precondition in order to convince others. So here he thinks that there should be three things in the society or for the person, these enabling factors. One is genuineness. Example, from the counselor perspective, I will tell so that you can understand easily. What are degrees you have done? You have to clearly tell it. How many people you have treated with the depression or anxiety, stress, so on so? That you have to clearly tell. You cannot tell that I have treated 1,000 people, even though you have not treated a single person. You have not worked in a particular hospital, a mental hospital, but you say that I worked in New York, New Jersey, or NIMHANS, or NEPAD, or mental health organization. You cannot do that type of, that frank openness should be there, honesty should be there. Once genuineness is there, then only you will try to create an environment for the self-actualization or modification of his behavior or thought process or emotional process in a particular person during the counseling process. This is number one condition. Second one, unconditional positive regard. Because in the childhood, a person has not received the regard from the others. Now, if you start giving, he realizes, oh, here is the person who is giving me respect, regard. So his regard, his self-esteem will increase. So also appreciating and then is empathy. Try to put your shoes, your feet in the legs, in their shoes, and try to understand the internal framework of their experiences, their evaluation of the situation. They think that what they are doing is correct at home, even though husband is misbehaving, wife is misbehaving, or child is misbehaving, or smoking, or drug addiction, or substance abuse is there, and different issues are. So that problems are there. Their first thing you have to show the empathy. So internal, you have to reach that internal framework. What that is, that a particular person evaluating regarding himself in that particular situation or a problematic relationship, that you have to understand. So acknowledge the struggle and express the gratitude for sharing the things, all are monosyllables, and different techniques are. So giving respect and genuineness. What it facilitate? It facilitate belief, and it indicates that acceptance. In there is a excellent therapy or motivational interview is there. A technique is there. There it is completely dependent on the person-centric therapy of Carl Rogers. It is generally used for all places we can use, more so in the substance abuse people. It is used because they are not ready to accept that they are having a problem. So in order to make them accept, we adopt these techniques. Okay, this is the therapeutic aspect. Now, Carl Rogers think what is the development of personality. There are certain, before that, there are certain tendencies, 19 propositions are there, which covers all those points what we discussed till now. I briefly discuss about them. An individual continually in the continuously changing world of experiences. We already discussed it. Then perceptual field is the reality for an individual. It is subjective. It is organized. It is organized with respect to one Viva question. Is organized with respect to self-actualization tendencies. If it is consistent, it is well organized. If it is inconsistent, it is not well organized self. So then total perception will gradually become differentiated as we already told self. Also it gives behavior. Also I told about the relations with the environment. This I and me with the others, that also I discussed. Organizational one basic tendency is striving to actualize not only basic tendency. Two needs are striving, basic tendency, and then what is the second one? Self-regard. Positive regard, not self-regard. Regard from others or self. There are two things. Regard. When you talk about regard, it should be both. You also should positively respect yourself. There's expectation others also. All those points what we discussed that. This is the essence of the theoretical aspect of the. I'm just leaving it because time is short. We'll discuss. You can read it. Now coming to fully the dynamic development of personality. In the dynamics of personality, you have to write about these 19 propositions. It is given in the book, Becoming the Self. In that book he has given. Now we will discuss our fully functioning person. Maslow talked about the self-actualized person. Carl Rogers discussed same in the terms of fully functioning person. So here, fully functioning person, how it comes? One is unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional acceptance by others, and guidance by self-actualization tendency. Your own self-actualization should be pretty active. In the, you use the word, I forgot that, continuously active state. You used a term, I forgot that one. That is that. Let me see. Now this leads to the congruence. A person who is achieving his ideal self will have 5 characters. We have given 7 characters. One is openness to the experiences. Growing openness to the experiences. So he won't inhibit himself. He will adopt different strategies. So instead of defense mechanisms, he uses positive methods. He moves away from defense mechanism. Defense mechanism leads to psychopathy, we discuss. And increasingly existential lifestyle. Here he is living in the present moment, in sync with the self, ideal self. You want to be good husband, good student, good worker. This towards that you will be doing when you are you live in the present moment. Living in the present moment also in the modern days is called as mindfulness. Okay, one of the components is of mindfulness. So the self concept will be developed and you will become fit in that. Then increasingly organismic trust. So the humanism takes the responsibility for their decisions and acts. Same thing he is emphasizing here. He chooses his behavior according to the social norms and takes responsibility for that. And freedom of choice, we need not discuss. We already discussed. And then there is a creativity in these people. Fully functioning people will have creativity and freedom will be there. Thought process will be finding out of box. Activities will be taken. Then reliability, all their acts are constructive and other people can easily rely on it. This is another. And they lead rich, full life. The person who is having this rich, full life is leading dash life. What is called as? What is termed as? That life is called as good life. What are the characteristics according to Carl Rogers of a good life? You have to write same as fully functioning person's characteristics. There are 7 characteristics. So once these are there in one particular person, it leads to the optimal development. So fully functioning person, that is what is the word in that? Fully functioning person, what is the word in that? In the fully functioning person, the word is functioning. Ing form is there. So you have to write that it is a process, not a state, a continuous process. That it aims at fulfill your all potentials, utilizing full potentials. These are the major characteristics. So it leads to what? Congruence. What is congruence? Ideal self and real self are in concurrence, and also self-regard also comes there. Then fully functioning person is criticized many aspects from by others. This entire concept, the theory, we will evaluate this theory. Just one minute. So a positive aspect what we can write is he offered a new approach humanism along with Maslow. He contributed to the humanistic approach in psychology. He also developed humanistic therapy, that is person-centric therapy, who demands regard and actualization. So he focused more on internal consistency, not to have the crisis within you, always thinking that I'm telling one thing and doing something, I'm targeting something and doing something. This differentiation, discrepancy, one will not have it. So he gave unique interpretation to the human potential. Self-actualization is a big cause. Also says that as a targeted goal is very difficult, one will be working more hard. That tendency will be there. So once you have self-actualization, the stress also will be less. So his focus is more on making people fully functional and also creating social environment required for these people. These are the two critical elements this therapy, or sorry, this theory professes. So next one is criticism. A lot of criticism is there because it is mostly subjective. Also, tools are little for the subjective analysis. So this is very difficult to test scientifically. It is difficult to measure quantitative variables in a large population. And then he neglected the importance of unconscious mind in the personality development that is focused more by the psychoanalysis. Then he also underestimates even though he considers social influence, but not given more importance on this. Also, he gave less importance to the structure of the personality than fully functioning or dynamics of the personality. So he generalized many aspects in the name of humanism. The human nature is not what he envisages. There will be not all people are good, not all people are courageous to take decisions, use willpower, not not all people are creative, not all people are for self-actualization. So many contrasts are there. So these are all the negative aspects. Another thing is he says that unconditional positive regard. Suppose a person comes, it is very difficult one to practice it because we are already having opinions, beliefs, and values. Very deep, very hard task. Even though it looks simple, it is not that easy to implement in our practice. But we need the devoted attention to achieve it. Also, here he says that genuineness, most of the people, genuineness generally not practice. They suppress their own feelings and judgments during the process of the counseling. And then another criticism people say there are no modifications to it means not much research and not much experiments are done on this. Another one is it is too optimistic, which is beyond the one's capability. So all people will not be there about the human nature. Organismic evaluating process of our experiences, many people say that it won't work. So another criticism, blatant criticism is promoting self-love, self-esteem, self-regard, and then it generally leads to the narcissism. Means highest self-love is called as narcissism. He failed to understand the evil part of the human nature. This is about the criticism about the Carl Rogers. So let us through 2-3 minutes. Important points we will review. His humanistic approach is there, and then his focus is more on optimistic nature of human being, and he concentrated more on organism and experiences and perceptions of an individual that accrue from within and without. And there will be two tendencies of self-actualization tendency, and drive will be there, and also feedback mechanism of evaluation will be there. From this, we will be reacting, showing the behavior, forming the self, what I am, what I want to be. And for creating the self, there are three elements. One is past experience in the childhood. Second one is what we view about ourselves, our perception about ourselves. That is internal world, internal environment, and how others perceive me. That is the external perception. Put together, one forms from this evaluation process or organic evaluation process, one forms the self. That self is having three elements. One is positive regard, regard, self-regard, ideal self, and the real self. So then once this attempts of self-activation tendency is to achieving the goals, there will be congruency. Once the self-regard or self-esteem or self-confidence is more, and others are giving valuation, and there is genuineness, there is unconditional regard from the self and others, and there is empathy from others, then it leads to actualize the potential. Then that person is called as fully functioning person. Fully functioning person is a fully functioning person. Fully functioning is not a state, but it is a continuing process. This is all about the beautiful theory of humanistic theory. Many even there are certain therapies. Few therapies are classified as directing and non-directing. Direct means where counselor will dominate and direct the entire thing. That I know what is your state of mind, what is your problem, and I will dictate you what to do. This is direct or directing. But there are therapies which are non-directive. There are humanistic therapies comes under this. One among them is person-centric therapy. This we enable the client to take his own decisions and enable the client to understand his condition. For that, therapeutic aspect, he got in six conditions or six conditions for therapy, and also gave the 7 stages of change. That is therapeutic aspect. We are not discussing. If anybody interested, they can study. 6 conditions are rapport building, unconditional regard. Same thing will be there. And then changes regarding the change. Person try to tell that is not my problem. That is other problem. When that person comes, we have to employ this. Next, if in this process of counseling, that connection may be disconnected. Yes, I am giving that. After that, he says that in this condition, he says that no, there is a problem, but it is not contributed by me, but by others. After that, he says that, and third, in the process, what happens? This process of therapy. Then he tried to say that everybody is having a problem like this. Why I should bother? Then now he changes, and then now he feels that, oh, there is a problem. I should take responsibility. So in the 5th stage, he takes full responsibility. Not only saying, he acts, and he becomes very productive in this stage of therapy. Then he opens up, tells us the problem, and tells that we ask them what is your answer to this your problem. What are different alternatives? Then he gives the best some alternatives. Then we enable him to select the best of them, and then in the final stage, the self-accepting person opens up, changes himself, and see the light of it. These are 7 stages of change. You need not write it. This is what happens during the process of person-centric therapy, adopting those what we discussed earlier. This is about person-centric theory, of personality, self-theory of personality, Also, we discussed the person-centric therapy also, different issues like self-regard, unconditional positive regard, empathy. Here we discuss stages that full picture I have given regarding the theory as well as therapy. Tomorrow we'll see two units will cover. Maslow we already know. Another one is very important. When we will enter into the trait theory. All the trait theories are very important. You will get some questions on that. Also, practically as a psychologist, we for the assessment of personality, these theories are very helpful. Even in the second year, we are having practicals of Ising personality questionnaire. And Big Five is there, but whether we are doing or not, I don't know. So certain scales are there based on this therapy. So even the examination perspective, this is very important unit. That's why I've taken it first before the unit 4. Okay, tomorrow we'll see Abraham Maslow's personality theory, need-based personality theory, and Gordon Allport's trait theory, who is father of trait theory. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I will post 1 or 2 slides in the group.
Thank you, sir.
So you are in group, sir?
This is there in the book. I will see some PowerPoint slides. Last time also I posted.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.